Welcome back to All Booked Up. Let's continue with our novel, The Tale of Despereaux, where we've been hearing about Meg, who is not doing very well as a servant at the castle. Let's keep going with chapter 31, A Song in the Dark. The terrible foul odor of the dungeon did not bother Meg. Perhaps this is because sometimes when Uncle gave her a good clout to the ear, he missed his mark and delivered a good clout to Meg's nose instead. This happened often enough that it interrupted the proper workings of Meg's olfactory senses. And so it was that the overwhelming stench of despair and hopelessness and evil was not all that discernible to her, and she went happily down the twisting and turning stairs. "Gore," she shouted, "it's dark, ain't it?" "Yes, it is, Meg," she answered herself. "But if I was a princess, I would be so glittery light-like that there wouldn't be a place in the world that was dark to me." At this point, Meg broke into a little song that went something like this. "I ain't the Princess P, but someday I will be. The P-ha-he, someday I will be." Meg, as you can imagine, wasn't much of a singer. More of a bellower, really. But in her little song, there was, to the rightly turned ear, a certain kind of music. And as Meg went singing down the stairs of the dungeon, there appeared from the shadows a rat, wrapped in a cloak of red and wearing a spoon on his head. "Yes, yes," whispered the rat, "a lovely song, just the song I've been waiting to hear." And Roscuro quietly fell in step beside Meg. At the bottom of the stairs, Meg shouted out to the darkness, "Gore, it's me, Meg. Most calls me Meg. Delivering your food. Come and get it, Mr. Deepdowns." There was no response. The dungeon was quiet, but it was not quiet in a good way. It was quiet in an ominous way. It was quiet in the way of small, frightening sounds. There was the snail-like slither of water oozing down the walls, and from around a darkened corner, there came a low moan of someone in pain. And then, too, there was a noise of rats going about their business, their sharp nails hitting the stones of the dungeon and their long tails dragging behind them through the blood and muck. Reader, if you were standing in the dungeon, you would certainly hear all of these disturbing and ominous sounds. If I were standing in the dungeon, I would hear these sounds. If we were standing together in the dungeon, we would hear these sounds, and we would be very frightened. We would cling to each other in our fear. But what did Meg hear? That's right, absolutely nothing. And so she was not afraid at all, not in the least. She held the tray up higher, and the candle shed its weak light on the towering pile of spoons and bowls and kettles. "Gore," said Meg, "look at them things. I ain't never imagined there would be so many spoons in the whole wide world." "There is more in this world than anyone could imagine," said a booming voice in the distance. "True, true," whispered Roscuro. "The old jailer speaks true." "Gore," said Meg, "who said that?" And she turned in the direction of the jailer's voice. Chapter 32, Beware of the Rats. The candlelight on Meg's tray revealed Gregory limping towards her, the thick rope tied around his ankle, his hands outstretched. "You, Gregory presumes, have brought the food for the jailer." "Gore," said Meg. She took a step backwards. "Give it here," said Gregory. He took the tray from Meg and sat down on an overturned kettle that had rolled free from the tower. He placed the tray on his knees and stared at the covered plate. "Gregory assumes that today, again, there is no soup." "Eh?" said Meg. "Soup!" shouted Gregory. "Illegal!" shouted Meg back. "Most foolish," muttered Gregory as he lifted the cover off the plate. "Too foolish to be born a world without soup." He picked up a drumstick and put the whole of it in his mouth, chewed and swallowed. "Here," said Meg, staring hard at him. "You forgot the bones." "Not forgotten. Chewed." "Gore," said Meg, staring back at Gregory with respect. "You eats the bones? You are most ferocious." Gregory ate another piece of chicken, a wing, bones and all, and then another. Meg watched him admiringly. "Someday," she said, moved suddenly to tell this man her deepest wish, "I will be a princess." At this pronouncement, Chiaroscuro, who was still at Mig's side, did a small, deliberate jig of joy. In the light of the one candle, his dancing shadow was large and fearsome indeed. "Gregory sees you," Gregory said to the rat's shadow. Roscuro ceased his dance. He moved to hide beneath Mig's skirt. "Eh?" shouted Mig. "What's that?" "Nothing," said Gregory. "So you aim to be a princess. Well, everyone has a foolish dream. Gregory, for instance, dreams of a world where soup is legal. And that rat, Gregory is sure, has some foolish dreams too." "If you only knew," whispered Roscuro. "What?" shouted Mig. Gregory said nothing more. Instead, he reached to his pocket and then held his napkin up to his face and sneezed into it. Once, twice, 3 times. "Bless you," shouted Mig. "Bless you, bless you." "Back to the world of light," Gregory whispered. Then he balled up the napkin and placed it on the tray. "Gregory is done," he said, and he held the tray out to Mig. "Done, are you? Then the tray goes back upstairs. Cook says it must. You take the tray to the deep downs, you wait for the old man to eat, then you bring the tray up. Them's my instructions." "Did they instruct you, too, to beware of the rats?" "The what?" "The rats." "What about 'em?" "Beware of them," shouted Gregory. "Right," said Mig. "Beware the rats." Roscuro, hidden beneath Mig's skirt, rubbed his front paws together. "Warn her all you like, old man," he whispered. "My hour has arrived. The time is now, and your rope must break. No nibbling this time, rather a serious chew that will break it in 2. Yes, it is all coming clear. Revenge is at hand." Chapter 33. A Rat Who Knows Her Name. Mig had climbed the dungeon stairs and was preparing to open the door to the kitchen when the rat spoke to her. "May I detain you for a moment?" Mig looked to her left and then to her right. "Down here," said Roscuro. Mig looked at the floor. "Gore," she said, "but you're a rat, ain't you? Didn't that old man warn me of such? Beware the rats," she said. She held a tray up higher so that the light from the candle shone directly on Roscuro and the golden spoon on his head and the blood-red cloak around his neck. "There is no need to panic, none at all," said Roscuro. As he talked, he reached behind his back, and using the handle, he raised the soup spoon off his head, much in the manner of a man lifting his hat to a lady. "Gore," said Mig, "a rat with manners." "Yes," said Roscuro. "How do you do?" "My papa had him some cloth much like yours, Mr. Rat," said Mig. "Red like that. He traded me for it." "Ah," said Roscuro. He smiled a large, knowing smile. "Did he really? That is a terrible story, a tragic story." Reader, if you will pardon me, we must pause for a moment to consider a great and unusual thing, a portentous thing. The great and unusual, portentous thing is this. Roscuro's voice was pitched perfectly to make its way through the tortuous path of Mig's broken-down cauliflower ears. That is to say, dear reader, Miggery so heard, perfect and true, every single word that the rat Roscuro muttered. "You have known your share of tragedy," said Roscuro to Mig. "Perhaps it is time for you to make the acquaintance of triumph and glory." "Triumph?" said Mig. "Glory?" "Allow me to introduce myself," said Roscuro. "I am Cheer Roscuro. Friends call me Roscuro, and your name is Miggery so. And it is true, is it not, that most people simply call you Mig?" "Ain't that the thing?" shouted Mig. "A rat who knows my name!" "Miss Miggery, my dear, I do not want to appear too forward so early in our acquaintance, but I must inquire, am I right in ascertaining that you have aspirations?" "What do you mean, aspirations?" shouted Mig. "Miss Miggery, there is no need to shout, none at all. As you can hear me, so can I hear you. We are 2 perfectly suited each to each other." Roscuro smiled again, displaying a mouthful of sharp yellow teeth. "Aspirations, my dear, are those things that would make a serving girl wish to be a princess." "Gore," agreed Mig. "A princess is exactly what I want to be." There is, my dear, a way to make that happen. I believe there is a way to make that dream come true. You mean that I could be the Princess P? Yes, Your Highness, said Brusquero, and he swept the spoon off his head and bowed deeply at the waist. Yes, your most royal Princess P. Core, said Mig. May I tell you my plan? May I illustrate for you how we can make your dream of becoming a princess a reality? Yes, said Mig, yes. It begins, said Brusquero, with yours truly and the chewing of a rope. Mig held the tray with the one small candle burning bright and listened as the rat went on, speaking directly to the wish in her heart. So passionately did Brusquero speak, and so intently did the servant girl listen, that neither noticed as the napkin on the tray moved. Nor did they hear the small mouse-like noises of disbelief and outrage that issued from the napkin as Brusquero went on unfolding step by step his diabolical plan to bring the princess to darkness. Oh my goodness. That's the end of book number 3 within our novel, and I can't wait to find out what happens with Brusquero's dark plan.